Khorne versus Greenskins is absolutely a matchup that promises a bloody, brutal good time today. This replay from my patron Coops, I promise it is actually from Coops this time, is facing off against the Greenskins. We've got Valkia the Bloody leading the way, and then this unit, which you don't see too much, mainly because they're much too expensive, but the Knights of the Brazen Throne, the Regiment of Renowned Skull Crushers. They've got dual axes for anti-infantry instead of the standard lances and anti-large of their counterparts. Frenzy, of course. They've also got this murderous charge. If units, if they're charging, they get a 50% mass and charge bonus buff, considering they're already buffed. Charge bonus from Frenzy sits at 77. While that's active, with 71 weapon strength, they're going to be very strong, backed up by an Exalted Hero, who also carries dual axes on a Juggernaut for anti-infantry. He's got some pretty good abilities. This Banner of Rage gives him basically like a second Frenzy. He basically has like double Frenzy, essentially. He also has the Norskin Rage passive, and can take a limited self-healing of Potion of Toughness. What is that? 21 seconds of 0.8% heals per second. It's a pretty decent amount of HP. What is that, like 15-16% HP, something like that? Not too bad, definitely. It is somewhat limited, but of course it also has the armor and melee defense component as well, so can bail him out of a bad situation. Got some Marauders of Khorne up front, one unit of Chosen with dual hand weapons, some Marauder Horsemen, yes, with throwing axes, of course, and 4 Flesh Hounds kind of act as a nice vanguard here. For the Greenskins, WARZAG coming in with his Debiggin. Got some Savage Orc Biggins as well. Squig Herds scattered around. Squig Herds are a great direct counter to Hound. Most Hound type units. Of course, Flesh Hounds do count as large, so they're not going to be subject to that anti-infantry bonus. Also got some Night Goblins scattered around. Orc Boy Biggins for elite anti-large AP. Valkia is going to come in here and try and bait some shots from the Biggin, but no dice. Instead, it's shooting at the most expensive unit on the field in terms of multi-model units, and that is these Knights of the Brazen Throne. It's the main reason why you don't see them. Animation's also janking a little bit as they run there. A little bit of frame rate issues specifically with their animation, it looked like briefly. But anyway, they are quite strong. We're going to see how they do here. Coops is going to kind of approach with a sort of flank attack with a delayed center here. The Chosen of Khorne thankfully haven't taken too much damage. The Flesh Hounds are going to get in here against the Squigs, and the Gobbos on both flanks. Orc Boy Biggins are going to follow up, and the Orc player's probably thinking that this is enough anti-large to collapse these, but the throwing axes are also going to come in and throw on the side of those Orc Boy Biggins, maybe even get in a little bit of combat. And here come the Knights of the Brazen Throne straight into the Squigs and Goblins. And meanwhile, the Savage Orcs in the center, as well as the 8-peak Loons, are going to rush in to try and lawnmower these infantry. Of course, the Marauders are going to have a pretty bad time there, even when the Savage Orcs miss their charge. Likewise, over on this side, without the support of the Elite Cavalry, the Flesh Hounds do start to fall down pretty quickly, but the Knights of the Brazen Throne definitely come in with a pretty decisive break here. They actually cause terror. No, they do actually cause terror. Wow, I didn't realize that. That's another sort of ROR effect you do pay for, definitely, with their expense, but still. Yeah, quite strong, given that Khorne, and, you know, interestingly enough, a lot of the Monogod factions don't actually have very cost-effective access to terror. You have to take something like a Soul Grinder or a Greater Demon, and when you're in that cost range, something like these Knights of the Brazen Throne suddenly doesn't seem quite so ridiculously expensive. They're going to just destroy the Savage Orc Biggin, who's trying to tactically pull away here, and I believe maybe they were chasing those Marauder Horsemen throwing axes, get completely pulled out of position. Meanwhile, Valkia is trying to snipe WARZAG. He is on foot, so he's not going to be subjected to her anti-large bonus, but would be subjected to this guy's anti-infantry bonus should he get into combat. For now, though, just facing off against the Biggin. I guess if you could manage to take that mask, would that appease Khorne as like an offering in place of a giant skull? Anyway, not really sure. Regardless, the infantry of Khorne, other than the Chosen, obviously suffers pretty badly, but it is a pretty elite, tall build here, relying a lot on this mobility to get its work done. So the Boy Biggin's going to try and swing over again to the Marauder Horsemen of Khorne here. They'll pull away. They're going to do some damage as they do, throw in their nice flaming axes straight into the faces of those Boy Biggins there. And the Hero of Khorne has not taken much damage at all. I mean, that double frenzy, man, 84 charge bonus. Now that the rage is also, that doesn't actually buff charge at all, but he's got a bit of physical resistance from it. Will definitely help against the high damage output of the Rogue Idol there. It doesn't have magic damage, so Definitely is going to make a difference with that super high weapon strength. Even a small percentage will make a pretty big difference in terms of real number value when applied to such high weapon strength. But yeah, just great bloody brutal combat here as the Savage Orcs duke it out with the Chosen. Biggin fighting alongside Marauder Horsemen, throwing the last of their axes here. Let's check in with the Knights of the Brazen Throne. They've come back to try and finish off Warzag's supporting troops. Valkia comes through. Gonna try and spear the Great Green Prophet here as he runs away. Gonna be casting some Here We Go, it looks like. Try and maybe get some get back here as well for that leadership buff, but I mean, between the armor and the magic resistance, that Brain Burst is really not going to do much. Spell resistance, even, of the Knights of the Brazen Throne. They're going to take very little damage from that. And there's definitely a lot of things on Greenskins' roster that could be threatening to these guys. But unfortunately, Savage Orc Biggins just don't necessarily have the WA power in this type of situation to deal with it. Even with WA active, although you can see that the Knights of the Brazen Throne there did take some significant damage in that engagement. They're going to pull back through. But with Warzag now being sniped by the Khorne champ, oof, down he goes. I think that's probably it. Yep. Warzag stays in the grass there. That is going to mean that the Greenskins just run into mass leadership issues. Terror takes hold, of course. So Savage Orc Biggins are not immune to psychology. Without their frenzy, they're going to rout off pretty quickly. And now Valkia's left, trying solo out. Well, not solo out. She's got her Khorne companion here. The Exalted Champion charges in. Valkia also lancing down, and together they'll fight the Rogue Idol and bring him down. Such a cool replay. Big thanks for Coops for sending this one in. It's nice to see the elite kind of Khorne builds working out too. I think in quite a few matchups, I think this is actually probably the better way to go. I'm not sure. Combination of Valkia and these Knights is interesting. Personally, I'm still a huge fan of Skarbrand in land battles. He's just such a force of nature to deal with. You can definitely misplay him pretty badly, but a lot of the things that are going to be good against Skarbrand would probably also be good against Knights of the Brazen Throne. I guess they are somewhat less vulnerable to something like Mass Orc Arrow Boys, just because, you know, the extra armor and their multi-model count means that they can, you know, kind of saturate in and occupy a full unit of archers at a time, probably break them super quickly too. So very interesting, you know, to kind of not necessarily cheap out on the characters. I mean, both of these characters are relatively still expensive, but definitely pay for themselves. Knights of the Brazen Throne, in terms of raw damage output, do not, but the terror is super important here, and I think that should definitely not be understated. Chosen of Khorne get pretty close. They're super expensive also for what you get. I would kind of expect them to get a little bit of a price reduction just because it's tricky to make them work consistently. Like here, the Greenskins, I think Warzag, I spotted, didn't show it in the replay, but he did have Foot of Gork, and that would have been devastating against the Chosen. Likewise, I mean, it's arguable throwing the rocks at, I would say the Knights of the Brazen Throne is probably a good target initially, but I might try and long-term value on the Chosen. And then also for the Greenskins, tactically in that frontline engagement, like, you want to run up, release the Fanatics, and then run away with 8 Peak Loons. It requires some significant micro, but that way you can actually deal huge damage to the Chosen without them just getting instantly killed, you know, right after. But Orc, Boarboy Biggins, great in this matchup. Squig Herds kind of suffered here a little bit, but one of them does pay for themselves, and I do like the pick here just in case Khorne goes wide with Hounds. I'd probably take some Skirmish Cavalry, though. Greenskin Skirmish Cavalry does outrange all Marauder Horsemen, like Goblin Wolf Rider Archers. They just outrange them, and they just outspeed them enough that you can counter-skirmish them super effectively with your own Missile Cavalry. So I would definitely cut even just one of the Biggins here to take a couple of Wolf Rider Archers to help kind of counter-skirmish some of these throwing axes. Would have definitely helped. One of the throwing axes didn't do much. I guess I take that back. Both of them almost got 1,000 damage value, so it's such a strong unit. One that you definitely need to plan for, given that it's probably one of Khorne's most cost-effective units. And just in general, I mean, Khorne has a really scary aggressive swarm now with the Hounds, the Warhounds, Fleshhounds, and Marauder Horsemen kind of all working in tandem, but you also do have to prepare for these elite tall builds like this as well. So hopefully you guys enjoyed watching this one. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit the bell notification button. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.